Well, we had technical difficulty on our last broadcast, so we get to do it again. Take two. And I'll check the monitor at this point. I'm at Chalmette Battlefield on a foggy morning, very similar to what happened about 2 weeks from now in 1815, January 8th, the Battle of New Orleans. But however, today there's several reasons to be here, besides the fact that the Battle of New Orleans didn't just end it that day. It actually started in early December, and there were some major confrontations this week leading up to that gave Andrew Jackson the idea of where to build the fortifications. And I've been told that the fortifications were actually where we're standing at now. And what they did was, when they purchased the land for the battlefield to commemorate that, the actual land was not available, and they got the land right next door because it's the cemetery. So the battlefield is actually that you go to the park is really not where the battle took place. It's really where I'm standing now. So what? You know, you're 500,000 feet away. Anyway, a driving force today is, in last week's newspaper, The Advocate of New Orleans said that Wreaths across America was going to happen at two locations. One in Slidell at a national cemetery, and one at a cemetery in Mandeville. They admitted to say that it was going to happen here, which was probably one of the most significant ones. Here, the Daughters of the Confederacy, and I only learned this last night, were putting wreaths. But the thing is, here, there's 12,000 Union soldiers buried here. Just give me a second, because I want to check to make sure if we're looking good. Yes, okay, we got the camera at the right angle this time. So right now, I want to show you what this looks like. There are 16,000 soldiers buried here in Chalmette. I would say it's the New Orleans version of Arlington because of the number. Where else are you going to find that number? 12,000 of those are Union soldiers. The Daughters of the Confederacy of the South put wreaths on those graves. They started doing that in 1866 in Columbus, Mississippi. However, I think President Johnson declared that Memorial Day was started by somebody in Waterloo, New York, as opposed to by Mrs. Rutherford in Columbus, when she wrote to all the chapters of, at the time, were called the Solidarity for Soldiers chapters in the South, to say, let's decorate the graves, not just of Confederate soldiers, but of all soldiers, because they know that many families, and we've seen stories done, cannot come back and look at their Union fathers and sons who died in this war. So the Daughters of the Confederacy for 150 years now has been honoring all soldiers, and I wanted you to see what that looks like here, because the wreaths, every third grave has a wreath on it for what must be 3/4 of a mile. This is an amazing feat, and they did this on Saturday, and it held up through the big storm we had yesterday. Again, our little group, which is called Save Nola Heritage, is doing this because, and you can see our Jackson logo, we're here, it's fitting. There's an effort right now to take down the statue of Andrew Jackson in New Orleans, along with the other statues that we saw taken down, because the mayor said these were put up by the Daughters of the Confederacy as a false narrative, as part of some cult of the lost cause. Baloney. They were put up the same way that people honor fallen soldiers, you know, and that is the point that needs to be made. So let's see what that looks like today. You know, and here you can see most of the graves are nondescript. Every third marker in the front row gets a wreath, and a few perhaps had family members that brought wreaths for other ones. On the other side, which is leading towards the battlefield, this is what it looks like. It's hard to imagine, and what's good to see is that that is what it must have looked like to the British on the day of the battle. Here, taking a break again to look. This is what the Chalmette battlefield looks like in New Orleans, and you can see it goes down to the river. Roughly on each side, it's about 10 deep of the graves. This guy was 1865. So he was right after the war actually, Lee had surrendered. Some of the markers are larger. And on the other side, here you can see some people, unknown soldiers, just got a brick. A simple brick. But many have regular markers, if they know the name to put up there. And then this is the battlefield as put back in place. And I wanted you to see this. Chalmette National Cemetery. We honor veterans who served the country. 15,000 veterans. It's now over 16,000. 6,700 unknown. 4 veterans of the War of 1812 are here. And there's a few from the Spanish-American War and a few from World War I and World War II.